Movies, one of the greater joys in life, and today we are going to get into my top 8 sequels that were better than the original. I have one honorable mention, and on top of that, I got a little bit of a tidbit information on one of the movies that I really enjoy, and I didn't even know that one was swapped for the other. So stay tuned, we're going to get right into it right after this.
You guys got fat while everybody.
Before I get cut off by the intro, make sure you hit that like, share, and subscribe. And any movie mentioned here will be down in the description. Those are affiliate links, and if you use any of them, I thank you very much for showing your support for the channel. Anyways, get into it.
You guys got fat while everybody starved on the street. It's my turn. You come with me. I'm at the Plaza Hotel. You're welcome. You're all welcome.
Now, as a disclaimer, growing up, I watched a lot of Chuck Norris movies, and my father was into Texas Ranger. He absolutely loved those type of movies, and Cannon Films was probably one of the greater production companies that just brought you nothing but cheesy action, great films. And what I didn't know until this documentary is that one of my favorites is actually the sequel, and that's going to be Chuck Norris's Missing in Action. Now, that was actually supposed to be the sequel, and Missing in Action 2, quote unquote, the beginning, was actually supposed to be the first movie. They were pretty much filmed back to back, and after Canon executives watched both movies, they decided to come out with the sequel first and just name it Missing in Action, and then come out with part 2 and label it The Beginning. I just thought that that was one of the more funny things, and on top of that, I learned a lot from this documentary. This is a must-have if you love Cannon Films. This was just such a great adventure. Coming in at number 8 is going to be Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 2. The reason why I say this movie is better is because they didn't have to do much with drawing out the storyline like they did in the first one. And on top of that, let's face it, Sandman was kind of but Doc Ock was definitely one of the greater villains in that trilogy. Just automatically put Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man on the map for me. Look, the first one was great, and if it wasn't for the originals of these movies, the sequels would probably never exist. Number 7, and also one of my buddy's favorites, my buddy Todd, is going to be Captain America Winter Soldier. This one was much more action-packed, much more badass, and it shows you how far Captain America is willing to go, especially for one of his best friends that, well, the Winter Soldier doesn't even know that that is his best friend. So it's just a whirlwind of action in this one. While the first one was great and Red Skull was an awesome villain, I just think Winter Soldier took a totally different direction, and it was just badass. Number 6, a lot of people might not agree with me, but I agree with myself, and that's going to be Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back. A New Hope was great, but again, sometimes when you have to tell the storyline, the original movie really takes that hit. But with that sequel, you're able to just cut down on that storyline and just totally have something spectacular that's going to be more adventurous, more action-packed, things of that nature. And let's just face it, Darth Vader, I just loved him in this one, and the whole quote,
"I am your father."
It's just memorable, whereas A New Hope really doesn't have any kind of tagline that's super memorable like they do in The Empire Strikes Back. Number 5, Aliens 2 Alien. Alien was a great movie, don't get me wrong, but as far as the sequel, Aliens, Ripley just became so much more of a badass and somewhat of a mother figure, and she just went all out battling that alien it's just a lot more fun and a lot more action packed than the first one. Number 4, again, if it wasn't for the original, we wouldn't really get much of the storyline and why he did what he did and why he does what he does. But John Wick 2, I think that was so much more action packed, and a dive into the world of where John Wick actually came from. Keanu Reeves really kicks ass, and I just love the whole world that it takes you into. Number 3, I think everybody's going to pretty much agree with this, and that's going to be Terminator 2 Judgment Day. I really like this one because of the T-1000. I thought he was so much more badass. Even though Arnold Schwarzenegger was this big, muscular guy, it was just funny how this liquid could whoop his ass, no problem. And just the way that, especially that one scene where he's pretending to be the mom because he can take shape of anything he wants, and he just stabs that guy through the head. That part is just always crazy to me. Coming in at number 2, and I think a lot of people will agree with this one because the first one was a little bit slow paced in my opinion, and I think it just didn't have the livelihood as The Dark Knight did. Christopher Nolan really went all out on this one. While I do like all 3 movies, let's face it, Part 2 is probably one of the greater ones and one of the greater Batman films. Heath Ledger, still to this day, we all were talking so much about how this guy from Brokeback Mountain is about to play the Joker. We all just made him a laughing stock until we actually seen the movie. Now, do I think the movie would have had as much success as it did if Heath Ledger didn't die? Yes and no. I think the allure of Heath Ledger's passing is what really drawn people to the movie theater to actually see his Joker in action. You may disagree, but that's just my opinion, and I will hold to that. As honorable mention, The Raid 2, I think it's just got a lot more action and it's a lot more badass, especially that kitchen scene. I mean, don't get me wrong, Part 1 has some amazing side-scrolling action, a whole bunch of martial arts. I love it. Like I said, again, if it wasn't for the original to these movies, there wouldn't be a sequel and there wouldn't be this badass of a movie. But it's just a great thrill ride, and that's all there is to it. And number 1, a lot of people are probably going to disagree with this one on me, but this is just personally my opinion. And while I do like the first one, I love The Godfather 2. And I will tell you why. I love the fact that they give the backstory to Vito Corleone and where he came from, what he did, and how he became power. But I also love how Michael Corleone is just manipulating everybody and trying to bring the family to a level that it's never seen before, and trying to bring it more into the positive public eye so that behind the scenes he can really do what he wants. And I think the portrayal of a lot of his family that he went through with them, especially his brother, and having to make that decision, I think was one of the more harder decisions that he really had to make, especially that scene where he kisses him and he tells him, "I know it was you." And to me, that was like heartbreaking. I just couldn't imagine having to do that and really make that decision. But Part 2, I think Francis Coppola really just took that movie to an entirely different level. And if you want my opinion, we really didn't need the third one. Although I haven't watched it in probably 15, 20 years. So maybe it's time to give it another shot and see if it's really as bad as they all say it is. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. I will see you on the next one. And until then, peace. Thank you. You love me. You
Oliver.